Dr. Slack is not a bad doctor. I was just questioning if her plan was the right plan. I had time to think about everything, and I think the reason why I still went back to her is because my experience with her throughout the first half of my cancer journey with the tissue expander, with my first reconstruction, it was all great. And so I just needed to let down my guard. And if I was going to choose her, I really needed to trust her.
Hey everyone, welcome to season 3. This is Shauna.
And this is Rosalina, and we're your hosts for Too Young for This Shit podcast. This podcast is not just about boobs, but our journey with cancer. We are young millennials, open about giving you a raw and unfiltered look into our lives. We are in no way medical professionals, nor are we offering medical advice. Any medical references are cited directly from public websites or from our personal diagnosis. Some topics and stories may be triggering to those who are fighting, have fought, or have loved someone with cancer.
Hey everyone, ahead of today's episode, I'm here with another reminder that this season we want to put your voice on air during our voice memo special episodes. This week, our question is for the Provivors out there. What is it like to be a Proviver? What advice would you give to those who had just found out about their gene mutation? To leave us a message, follow the link in the show notes and hit the button that says start recording. We've loved hearing from you all so far this season, so please keep your answers coming. We'll be back next week with another question.
Hi everyone, this is Rosalina.
And this is Shauna. Welcome back to another episode of the Too Young for This Shit podcast.
So Shauna, how has life with Foobs been for you?
Honestly, they've been great. They felt so natural to me from the beginning that I actually really love them.
Really?
Yes, I do. I know that might be like a hot take because, it's like a foreign thing in your body, but they don't bother me at all. I don't know. I just kind of still really love them.
Yeah. How about the way that after you had your implants, when you were going through your closet, could you wear the same bras? Could you wear the same shirts?
Yeah,
Or
I mean,
did you have to switch it up?
I ended up being about the same size that I was pre-cancer. They're just like more perky. I definitely have like a cleavage line, which I never had before. So that's like kind of a nice change. The only thing that obviously I can't do is wear an underwire bra. And honestly, after this whole thing, I don't ever want to wear an underwire bra again. So I'm okay with that.
I mean, underwire bras are like old news.
I think I said they're like torture devices in season 2, and I still stand by that.
Yeah.
Rosalina, how has life with Foobs been for you?
So I would say it's better than if you asked me last year. And I have been getting used to them, which is a good sign. And I'm able to wear most of the shirts that I have and then the bras. The one thing that I do notice, and it's just because of the way that they had to do my mastectomy, it's a little bit flatter because I had a single mastectomy on the left side. It is a bit flat compared to my right side. And if you listen to season 2, my right side is my healthy breast. So they are different, but I make it work with just what I have. And if I notice that the left side is too flat compared to the right, I would wear these like pasties that basically would just make my left side just look a little bit more rounder. You just do these little tricks that you're like, no one would notice. These look fine.
Do you feel that you were the same size before? Do you feel like you're bigger, smaller?
It's basically the same size. My left is a bit smaller than my right. And we'll definitely get into that reasoning. But Shauna, I mean, what's going on with you? Just give us an insight based off, I think it's been a year for you, right?
Yes, it's been a year. And I walked out of my surgery, and I think I had mentioned it in season 2, like I had a meltdown on the car ride home because I was like, they're too small. And granted, they were so swollen, right? It takes a few months for them to like drop and fluff. And I kept hearing this and I was like, I need this to happen like right now. I needed the instant gratification of waking up from surgery with this beautiful chest. And that wasn't how it happened. I knew from the jump that I probably would have a revision surgery. I think just based on like hearing so many other women's stories that so many people have had a revision surgery after their implants were put in. So I kind of had that in the back of my head, like there's probably going to be another surgery for me. And I was like, okay with that. So I think that where I'm at right now is such a great start. I have the symmetry that I wanted. They are about the same size. I think I explained in season 1 actually that I had 2 different sized expanders that were placed during my mastectomy. And it was because my cancer side, they had to take more skin than they originally had anticipated. So they were only able to put a 300 sized tissue expander in to start on my cancer side, but they were able to put a 400 in on my left side, my non-cancer side. So then when I had my implants put in, the 400 side, my healthy side, had a bigger pocket to start with. Currently, right now, my implants are the same size, I believe. No, I think my non-cancer side is a little bit bigger, but it has dropped a lot more than my cancer side because I also had radiation on that side. So
Mhm.
I wear like a really, really good wireless push-up bra right now, and you would never be able to tell the difference. But when I'm not wearing a bra, it is definitely, there's still like some unevenness between both sides. Last year, right after, I was like, I want to do this revision in September. I want to give it the 3-month mark. And then, I don't know, life started to hit and they started to drop and they started to look really, really good. And I was like, oh, I can push a revision for a while. Maybe I'll do it in the winter. Like, I'll give it some more time to kind of settle.
And by revision, you mean the fat grafting?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to at least get also the one side lifted. I wanted to get my left
Oh,
side
that's right.
lifted. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that it would be like a little stitch in that pocket just to lift the implant up and just have them even. Like I have the symmetry, I just need the evenness right now. So I went in February to see my plastic surgeon. I think it was like 9 months after, I think at that point of when I had my surgery, and I had to just get him checked anyways. So I went in like about to approach her about a revision and see what she wanted to do and how we would get that side lifted and how to just get like around my implants to look a little bit more natural. Right now, it's almost on my radiated side. There's a very deep line in between my chest and where my implant is, and it definitely needs some more like fullness in order to look a little bit more natural. So when I went in to see my plastic surgeon, I was like, let's do this. Like, I'm ready to do this revision. When can we do it? She was like, I'm going to be out on maternity leave and I can't schedule the surgery for you until June. So part of me was like, I can work with that. I'll let them drop a little bit more and like, let's just put it on the books for June and we'll go from there. I was planning to have surgery basically 2 weeks ago from now. June 16th was supposed to be my surgery date for my revision. And I think it was about a week or two before my surgery, I had to sit down and be like, what is my summer going to look like? Last summer, I wasn't able to swim in a pool. I wasn't really like out at the beach because I was still swollen and still recovering, still dealing with like scars and the stitches and just healing. And I didn't want to have another summer like that. Also, with the fat grafting, you have to be in like a compression garment. So, like, essentially, if I was to get fat grafting on my stomach, it would be like a binder that just goes around your stomach to keep it really, really tight. If I was getting it from my legs or my butt, it would be like almost like a set of Spanx, like really tight Spanx
Yeah.
that I would have to be in.
Which is something I did not know about. I didn't know you had to wear compression garments when you do fat grafting. That's something new to me.
It helps like with swelling.
Yeah, and that totally makes sense.
Absolutely. And we had like such a warm winter here in New York. It's been the 80s in the spring. And I was like, I don't know if I want to spend 6 to 8 weeks in a compression garment in the peak of summer, sweating my ass off. And I think too, I've been in like such a good space. In the summer of 2021, I was going through treatment and couldn't like really fully enjoy myself in the summertime. Summer of 2022, I was still recovering. So this summer, I kind of just like, I'm feeling so good that I just want to like enjoy it and then deal with a revision surgery in the fall when it's starting to get a little colder. Maybe that compression is going to be like a little bit more helpful.
I would also say that what you just mentioned, you're such in good spirits And
Yeah.
I feel like you're in the position that this surgery, it's not necessary. It's just more of just the look and feel of it is what you
Right.
wanted, and you can always push that back.
Right. This is like essentially an elective surgery and I could do it when I
Exactly.
want to. I'm glad that I'm in the position where I can push it off and being able to enjoy my summer.
How are we feeling about nipple tattoos? I know last season we were against them. How do you feel about them now, Shauna?
I'm still a no. It's still a hard no for me.
Yeah.
I never wanted to do the nipple reconstruction. To me, that was just like I didn't want another procedure like that and then to not have the results that I think that I would have in my head.
Right,
I
right.
don't know. To me, that risk isn't worth it. The nipple tattoo, I was like considering it because I mean, some people have these amazing 3D nipple tattoos that you would never be able to tell the
Yes.
difference. Like from afar, you'll never be able to know. But then I'm really scared about my radiated tissue. I saw in a support group that somebody had an infection after getting it and she posted her results and I am scarred for the rest of my life. And I just don't think that they are for me. What about you, Rosalina? You
Yeah,
still
yeah.
interested?
No, that totally makes sense. I still get a little freaked out by them because, like you said, they look real, but then when you look closely, they're not. And I just don't know how I feel about them. So right now, it's still a no for me. But you bring up a great point because I think you and I are in the same mental space in terms of trying to take care of our radiated breasts as much as possible. And so that's another thing I need to think about as well. I don't want anything to happen to my breast. And so I'm trying to take care of it as much as possible. And I think maybe for now, it just doesn't make sense to do the nipple tattoos if down the line it could lead to something that we don't want.
Absolutely. So, Rosalina, how have you been? Tell us about what you've been up to with your
I
new
know, right?
foobs.
It's like
Been a journey.
yes. So, as we all know, Shauna and I had surgery at the same time. I mean, I think you were a week ahead of me, but basically it was like the same time. And that was in June of 2022. After I had the reconstruction, as a reminder, I had a single mastectomy and we put an implant on that side. We also put a small implant on the tissue side for symmetry purposes. When I saw my plastic surgeon post op and everything after June, everything looked fine. And then one day I looked at myself in the mirror and I saw like an indent along the scar incision. So my scar is vertical and there was a section that just wasn't closed up compared to the rest of my scar. And that was a concern for me. I was like, is this something that it would eventually close up? Will it not close up? And bless Brian because he says things to make me feel better and not to worry. And when I approached him with how that section looked, he basically told me not to worry about it, like it's fine, whatever. In the back of my mind, I was like, I understand where you're going with this, sir, but I'm going to just still message my plastic surgeon just in case if something is wrong. And I did message her through my chart. That was August 10th. I sent her pictures. And just from the pictures, she mentioned that it looks like there was just an area of scab. So the scar is really thin there. So she was just asking me, is there any redness? And there wasn't. But basically, she was just telling me just to be aware that it's thin skin there and we could potentially have a surgical scar revision. So I responded back to her and I asked her, is a scar revision necessary? How would that work? And she responded back that she would just need to recut that line. And if we were to continue with that, she would just need to see me in person just to make that call. And I made an appointment with her on August 24th for her to see the actual section that I was concerned about. Her plan was, okay, if we want to do the surgical scar revision, she will be able to fix the scar and that I wouldn't need to go under anesthesia. It would just be local and I would be awake at the time, but obviously the area would be numb, so I don't feel anything. And generally, it would be an easy procedure. I was just thinking that these things probably happen, and maybe if she does the revision, things will be fine. I wasn't really necessarily worried.
Was she worried about infection at any point during this?
She wasn't because there was no redness around it.
Okay.
I told her about the exercise clinical trial. And I specifically told her I waited 8 weeks after the initial surgery back in June to start the clinical trial because I knew that her doctor's orders was to wait 8 weeks to even lift anything. She mentioned that I could have increased my pec muscles and that could have affected the incision. And she has a right to think that, of course, but I guess I was confused because I thought that after 8 weeks, I'm able to just go back to living my life. And if I was started to exercise, that there was no limitation with that. So I was really taken aback when she mentioned that. If she ever was concerned about the increase in pec muscles, then why didn't she mention about that when we put in the implant in like over the muscle? You know what I mean? Like I guess I was just really confused.
It's amazing you actually waited the 8 weeks. Like, you were like, by the book, I'm following the instructions. I went to work after 2 weeks and was lifting children. I would have been your plastic surgeon's nightmare.
Yeah, definitely. In terms of surgery and everything, like I take it really seriously. So I wanted to follow by the book as much as possible. I even slept on my back for those 8 weeks, the best that I could because I
Mhm.
can't control like what happens after I fall asleep, but I try to sleep on my back every single night.
Right.
Anyway, so the plan was to just fix the scar incision and that's it. Easy, right?
Wrong.
I know, exactly. And then I got a call from her assistant that Dr. Slack wanted to meet again. We could just do a virtual meeting. It's like, okay, that's fine. I didn't really think much of it. When I met with Dr. Slack, she mentioned that she's spoken with her colleagues and they recommended not just doing it locally and me being awake. Because his skin is radiated and she opens up the incision, she could have trouble closing it back up. And that's why the colleague recommended that I go under for this. And there could also be a possibility that they would need to downsize the implants in case my incision doesn't close up all the way. That took me by surprise. And at that time, I did respect it that she did ask her colleague because I'd rather be safe than sorry. Can you imagine me going through this plan and we did it locally and then she couldn't close up my breast? I would have freaked out.
I think you would have stabbed your plastic surgeon.
You know,
Yeah, probably.
not I mean, I'm not a physical person like that, but like mentally I would have stopped her.
I would have had like visuals of doing it.
Yeah. So, yeah, so then the whole plan changed. There could be a possibility that they need to swap the implant. All right, I need to think about it because I'm just like, at this point, the way that my breasts looked, like they looked fine, right? I didn't really want to change anything if I didn't really need to. But because there was a possibility that the breasts wouldn't close, she might have to swap implants and go for a lower size. I think during that conversation, she mentioned about the exercise portion again. And then I think that's when I got like a little pissed.
Well, because you felt like like you were being blamed for this, right?
Yes, exactly. I really felt like I was being blamed. And because this was the second time she mentioned this, I recorded the conversation through the Abridge app. after I had the conversation with Dr. Slack, I went to Brian. I was like, listen to this and tell me what you think. I wanted confirmation that my doctor was just being indecisive about what she thought could have been the problem. So when Brian heard back the recording, he was like, she's all over the place. And I'm like, thank you. Thank you for confirming, because I just didn't want to be the only one that thought this and thought that I was like crazy
Yeah.
for thinking this way.
So at this point, are you starting to feel like maybe it's time to break up with the plastic surgeon? Like maybe find a new one?
I didn't yet because I wanted to have another in-person meeting with her and bring Brian with me. We went to the appointment. And I kind of went in there. I went in there ready to like attack.
Guns blazing.
Yeah, I was ready to just attack. Because normally when I go into the appointment with her, I'm really happy, bubbly, we have fun conversations. But this time I was like, nope, this is a serious Rosalina. I'm here to do business.
Yeah, buckle up.
Right. Brian was asking questions and I was asking questions. But then I think this was the third time she mentioned about the exercise thing. That's when I was like, well, I disagree with you. And I think it caught her off guard, but like it also just made her realize that I was just not playing around and that I was upset and angry. And then that's when she went and said, you can always look for a second opinion. You can look for another doctor if you're not satisfied with what our plan is here. And I respected her for saying that. I don't think it was like a slap in the face for me. I mean, she is absolutely right. I should look into different doctors and see if there is a better one out there for me. And so I did. I looked back at the UCLA directory and kind of looked at if there was a female plastic surgeon, because that's who I was looking for. I remember at the time when I was doing my mastectomy, she was the only female plastic surgeon. And when I look back, she is still the only female plastic surgeon. So it's like, okay, this is going to be difficult. I remember the two plastic surgeons I saw at Cedars-Sinai, and there was one I didn't really necessarily like, so I crossed her off immediately. There was this other one, but she actually went into a private practice. And I was like, okay, well, this is going to be complicated, because most of the time, from what I've learned, and this is just in Los Angeles, I don't know elsewhere, but when a plastic surgeon goes to their own private practice, they usually don't accept insurance, or they will work with you to see if there's any out of network benefits. But I don't have out of network benefits. I have only in network. And so that is very difficult. So essentially, like, I would need to pay out of pocket.
Who wants to do that when you have insurance and this is something that's going to be covered, because all breast reconstruction is covered once you have cancer? So who wants to go pay out of pocket for that when you can get it covered?
Exactly. So that was just not in the cards for me. And also, cancer is very fucking expensive. Like last year alone, I think, and I calculated this, I think I spent, even including all the Ubers and Lyfts that I've taken and all that, it has cost me out of pocket wise close to $12,000 to $20,000 just out of pocket.
Mine, when I had to do my taxes, was $38,000 because I had to pay for IVF. $38,000. Cancer is really fucking expensive. That should be the name of a podcast somewhere.
I know. Yeah. Dr. Slack is not a bad doctor. I was just questioning if her plan was the right plan. I had time to think about everything. And I think the reason why I still went back to her is because my experience with her throughout the first half of my cancer journey, with the tissue expander, with my first reconstruction, it was all great. And so I just needed to let down my guard. And if I was going to choose her, I really needed to trust her. And I know that might change in a few months, because sometimes when you like feel like things have gone wrong, you just go absolutely crazy. But at this time, I was like, I need to just trust her. So I had a final meeting with her. I wanted to just finalize what our plan was in terms of the size of the implant because I was going to just go with the plan of just downsizing the implant. I felt like with our last conversation, that was not like a good ending to our conversation. So that was another thing where I was like, okay, if I want her to be my plastic surgeon, I think I need to make amends and also just be a bigger person and just apologize and just fix the relationship. We discussed that we would downsize the implants, and I think I was at a 385cc and I had Sientra implants, and I think they were in the moderate line. She mentioned to me that there was a new line called Low Plus, and so she would recommend that and then go from a 385cc to a 350cc in projection. It may sound like it's a big jump because it did to me, but she basically explained that it really isn't. After that conversation, I was like, okay, since I've decided to go with her again, I'm going to trust her and I'm not going to think about it anymore. It's crazy to me because while all of this was happening, we got reached out to the Kelly Clarkson show and we were basically able to get booked a week before my surgery. That was just a whirlwind. Like that
Really
was
was.
crazy to me.
It really was.
Now thinking back, I'm like, how the hell was I able to mentally do all this? It looks like I did. So
We survived.
I did survive. Sometimes I feel like I'm like a superwoman. I'm not going to lie. Like I like look back of all the craziness and I'm like, wow, I'm kind of in awe of this person.
Yeah, we've been through some shit. I think about that all the time. Even just thinking about the year of, like, treatment, like, everything, I'm like, "Damn, yo, we survived that."
I know,
I think about it, not all the time, but it definitely comes up when I have to tell my story or share my story. I'm like, "Oh, damn."
right? So I just remembered right now was the stress that I had when thinking about doing another surgery because at the time, Brian also had surgery in July, August. And it was only supposed to be like a short term thing where he was supposed to heal in 2 to 4 weeks. But it ended up not being that. And it ended up being a really long term problem. And when I'm in this state of hopelessness, the first person that I think about calling is my brother George because he is the person who I go to because he solves all my problems for me. So when I called him, I basically just like let out all my tears and just said that like I have to do this, not have to, but mentally in my mind, I wanted to do it soon and not have to wait because in case things get worse and I do have an infection and then I have to run to the ER, that's like my worst nightmare.
And then losing the implant, that's, like, the worst. That was, like, I think our worst fears within healing
Yes.
was an infection and then having to get it taken out and then wait for the infection to go away and heal and then start that whole process all over again.
Absolutely. Yes. That is also another fear. So for me, I wanted to get it done. And also, I wanted to look at 2023 as like a new year. I was also turning 30. So that's a big year for me. I wanted to just get everything fucking done like in 2022 and then just like close that chapter. So when I was on the phone with George, I basically just mentioned that Brian is not able to take care of me. And then we have Louie, my dog, who's going to take care of Louie. Like I wouldn't be able to. And it's just like this whole thing. And he was basically like, look, I'll just fly over there. I mean, what's the issue? I'll just fly over there, take care of you. We can even go back to New Jersey so then you could just feel in a better space mentally. And also, I think he needed to go back for work as well. After that phone call, I felt so much better. So George was able to fly back for, I don't know, I think the third time for me.
The best. He's the best.
The best, yes, absolutely the best. So the day of surgery, I was feeling very numb. I was basically just, I want to get this over with. I do not like being in the hospital. I hate being under anesthesia. I hate waking up and feeling dizzy and feel like I'm just not in control. I don't like people taking care of me. It's just something that I'm not a fan of. I think it was like an hour or two before my actual surgery, and I got on top of the bed and just got everything together, hooked up, whatever, all this mess. Then I see like then I see Dr. Slack like walking back and forth, and I knew that she was trying to look for like where I was. And then she like finally came over here, and then I wanted to say a joke, but I was like, you know what? I'll just like leave it. But I thought that was like really funny. I was just watching her and like, I could have yelled out like I'm here, but I just wanted to just have the little fun of just
Let her
watching
work for it.
her. So then she came over, and the final thing that she did mention that took me for a surprise is that instead of using dissolvable sutures, she wanted to use external sutures. So I need to get them removed after I'm like healed or whatever. And then I think it was just like a communication thing on both of our ends, because then I mentioned to her, well, I'm going back to New Jersey in 2 weeks. Can I still have someone else remove them for me and all this stuff? And she just said, yeah, I can go to like an urgent care or ER, but she would just write me like a doctor orders note. So then I was like, okay, I think that that's fine. I didn't mentally think that I would have such an issue like I did when I was trying to find a doctor to remove the sutures later on. So surgery is fine. I was fine. I went home, and George was taking care of me and Louie. And I saw Dr. Slack 1 week post, and then she was able to remove some of the sutures. And then that's when she gave me the doctor's order note. And she basically was like, you need to remove these like at 4 weeks post op. And I was like, okay. I go back to New Jersey, and that's when I was following the direction that Dr. Slack told me. And I also wanted to take pictures. I felt like it was for my own sake, and then also just to stay in communication with Dr. Slack. I felt like I needed to take pictures and show it to her, because that's harmless, right? You just want to just know that everything is looking fine, nothing is looking suspicious, we're not having the same issue like we did in the first time. So I was taking progress pictures, and then it was the moment where I needed to remove the sutures, and I was calling every urgent care. And one of the questions I asked, because this is something that I felt more comfortable with, is having a female doctor removing my like sutures. And that was really difficult. I'm not going to lie. There was a lot of urgent cares around that either they didn't have a female doctor, or they asked like where the suture was or is, I should say, and they were like, no, like we don't do that. It's like, okay, got it. A liability thing. I understand. I guess I didn't really think about it at first, but I finally found an urgent care that was able to do that. And I basically mentioned to them, it's on the breast area. Like I wanted to mention that in case like I don't want to go there and then having them turn me away because of where the area was. But even when I went to the actual appointment and the female doctor came in, she was just like hesitant. Like, again, I think it's just like a liability thing. She also had another person who's also a female to be in the room, and she made me sign like a waiver. But I was watching her, and she just removed the sutures seamlessly, and there wasn't any like problems. And right when she removed them, I took pictures. I showed it to Dr. Slack. I was like, it looks a little scabby. Like, what should I do? And she recommended doing like a gentle washing in the shower and using Aquaphor to moisturize around the area. And then basically, when there's no scabbing, she recommends doing the silicone tape to support the scar while healing. 4 days later, I noticed an opening near the scar incision. That's when I was getting a little concerned. I fucking messaged Dr. Slack and I was like, is something happening here? Like, should I be concerned? She basically was like, you need to start the silicone tape now and to put like multiple around like the area. So she was basically saying to put the silicone tape perpendicular to like where the opening was and then along the vertical incision. I did it every single day. I bought these tapes that were reusable. So you just have to like just wash it and reuse them again. And I consistently did it like the day that she told me to. Right when she was like, you need to start them now, I went to the store right away, got them, put them on, and then I was basically just monitoring the progress there. And every time I removed the tape, I would look at myself in the mirror, I would take pictures, and I'm like, I don't see any progress. Like, what's happening here? I was doubting her and I was doubting this surgery. I was like, okay, something must have gone wrong.
Were you raging at this point too? Or did you feel more defeated?
I felt defeated and I wanted to speak to my other doctors.
Mhm.
So I messaged my radiation doctor, I messaged Dr. Baker, my breast surgeon. I basically told them everything what's going on. And the other good thing about being in the same hospital system is that they're able to look back on notes that Dr. Slack has left during my appointments and everything like that. So they're able to piece things together. My breast surgeon called me because I asked her, do you have a referral? Because I am doubting this. I think there's an issue. She called me. She's like, tell me what's going on. So I basically told her all this thing, what's happening. And she was basically like, you still should go see Dr. Slack because I was going to see her in the next 2 weeks. She was also saying, I chose Dr. Slack for you because your personality match. She takes the time to answer questions. She was mentioning that these other surgeons don't really necessarily take that much time compared to Dr. Slack. If you still want me to tell you the name of the doctor that I would refer you to, like I can send it to you through my chart. And I was like, yes, let's just do it just in case. But the thing is that it's a male, right? There's no other female plastic surgeons at UCLA. It would be a male. I was very uncomfortable about the fact that I would see a male doctor. Brian knew everything, what was going on. And he was like, I can go to the doctor's appointments with you if you feel more comfortable. And I was like, let me just wait. This is going to be like the final straw. When I meet with Dr. Slack, that is going to be my determination whether I see this new plastic surgeon or not. Now, thinking back, each and every day that I went to take a picture of how the area looked, there were times where I was like, oh, it looks really good. And then there was times where I really doubted myself. So I think I really played like a mental game. I was really, really just being so hard on myself and very hard on Dr. Slack. But when I met with her, I like looked at my scar that day or that morning and I was like, oh, it actually looks better. So I think I was in a better spirits. But Dr. Slack, I think the last message that I sent her, I think she was a little concerned about how the scar was looking. So she even told me when she went into the appointment that she was not scared, but hesitant to like go into the appointment with a positive mindset. When she saw how the scar was looking, she was actually really surprised and she was like, oh, like this looks really good. And so because of her reaction, I was like, okay, she also thinks it looks good. And her recommendation was the way that you're using the silicone tape is working. And I think you should still consistently use them for the next year. And I was like, yes, I totally agree with you. I'm going to do that. It doesn't hurt to continue doing it, right? I still use the tapes and it's been, I don't know, since October. I'm going to hit a year in the next few months. It is looking better. I'm in a better place now. It did take time for me to sleep on my stomach because I was afraid that it would just mess up my progress and the healing journey. And then I think it maybe like a couple months ago, I was able to just come to senses and be like, okay, I think it looks better than it ever did. And now I could potentially just sleep on my stomach. I think the other thing that I forgot to mention that really went on, and for me, it's more of like when I went back home, the best part about being home was being surrounded by my family. I was in a very vulnerable place, and having my family there was like the best thing. But there was so many things that had happened while I was at home. My cousin who has type 1 diabetes, she lost eyesight and that was really difficult for me to see her in that state. My grandmother passed away like a few days before Thanksgiving. And I don't know if this is like a blessing in disguise, but it was easier for me to go to her funeral and see family while I was in New Jersey because the flight to Florida, that's where my grandmother lived and my dad's side of the family, it was just a shorter flight. And I think that if I was in Los Angeles, that would have been very difficult for me, I think. And so in terms of timing, it was the best in terms of me being at home with my family. I think all that stress with what was happening kind of was put onto my shoulders as well while I was trying to heal.
I think we also know like what stress can do to our bodies. I mean, stress can cause cancer. Like stress of all of that going on could have delayed your healing.
Yeah.
So now you've been on quite the journey, Rosalina. Like, how are you feeling now, like with your results? Do you feel like there's any type of closure for you?
Sadly, no, because I never wanted a boob job. Like, I never wanted any reconstruction on my boobs. I never had any problems with how my boobs looked. Like, that was like this section of my body that I never had a problem with. And so having that to be like an additional thing that I have to think about is nerve wracking. I know this is not the end for me. And I know there's a few options that I have, but none of those options sound amazing to me. None. Like, I don't want an additional scars from the tissue flap. The implants, they're not lifetime devices. And down the line, you can get a capsular contracture. You can have issues. And especially with having like a radiated breast, that's even worse. Your percentage goes way up. So it's just not perfect. It's never going to be perfect. And that is what really gets me upset.
It's hard to come to terms with that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think maybe sometimes I like compare myself to other women who don't have to do anything with their breast. And I'm like, you should be really happy with what you have right now because to be in my situation, you don't want to be.
I feel similar to you. I never wanted a boob job. I never wanted like bigger breasts. I never wanted to like have surgery. I'm with you. Like I never wanted to do anything to my body like that. And the fact that we like got dealt this hand and have to make these choices and go under and potentially have to do it again. Like when I was considering going bigger, my plastic surgeon like said like, "Oh, like we could do a flap surgery." But once she like had gone through what a flap surgery was and that I would have drains and that we'd be taking tissue from another part of my body. And it just sounded so invasive that I was like, I had just gone through everything that I had just gone through. And like, this is what I potentially have to do in order to like get results that I want. And when she said drains, I was like, I'm out. Like, I'll stay with my small little tiny implants. I'm not doing the drains again. But it's like invasive and nothing is ever easy. And it's like you do feel defeated, right? Again, it's like this hand that we've been dealt and it's like just more and more and more and it's shitty. And it's just like it's really discouraging. And it's hard to like when you're also maybe like not happy with your results and it's almost like, well, this is as good as it's going to get, right? Like, you better just be happy, be grateful that you have some sort of breast again. And that's not fair. It doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem like a fair hand to be dealt, and it's shitty and it's hard.
Yeah. And I also just want my old body back as much as I can. Going flat is not an option for me. I still want some sort of a circular thing on my body.
Some sort of a chest, right?
Yes. I want to be able to wear the same bras. I want to be able to wear the same clothes that I have. I don't want to change all of that. Cancer enough was a huge, huge change.
Yeah.
Especially with lifestyle. So with having to change anything else with my chest, that's not an option for me.
I agree. So we had kind of mentioned that Rosalina was using the scar strips. I am also using the silicone scar strips. It's been over a year for me. During my implant surgery, I also got my port scar revised. So I actually wear the silicone scar strip on my port scar every day. And I bought just on Amazon the silicone scar strips. It's like feet's worth of. It's like this big roll, and so I don't have to wash them. Every day I just cut a little piece, put a new one on, rip it off, throw it away. They're amazing. I don't put them on my breast scars anymore. I use it more for my port scar, because if I'm wearing like a lower cut shirt, it also protects it from the sun. So to me, I'm just trying to keep it like really protected. But the silicone scar strips are amazing. I use bio oil on my breasts to kind of help with healing, like maybe like fade a little bit of like the pinkness that there still is. Aquaphor was like amazing during recovery. I used a lot of that as well on my actual incisions. Like Rosalina had mentioned, like the scabbing that you got like after surgery. I also used the Aquaphor. I use sunblock on my chest, like on my scars too, when I'm not wearing the scar strip for my port scar. I'm wearing sunblock on it every day. So those are some of the things that I think were like kind of helpful with my scar healing. Rosalina, have you used anything different other than the scar strips?
No, that's the only thing that I use. And then in terms of the SPF, I am religiously applying SPF around my chest area, especially the radiated breast. I feel like that is just a very tender area, and I want to be able to take care of it as much as possible.
Yeah, especially the radiated side. I think that's so important to mention. Like, I'm using like zinc 50 on that breast. Like, I look insane, like going to the beach or like being in like low shirts, because it is like a shade of white that I've never been in my life. But it's just being so overly cautious is just so important. It's like not worth the risk.
Right.
Okay, well, there's our post reconstruction updates. Rosalina, I'm sorry you had such a difficult time, and I hope you do get some closure in the end. I'm rooting for you, girl.
Thank you.
A very special thanks to our podcast producer, Bethany Allard, and our podcast editor, Ayla Anderson.
Thank you all for listening and supporting our podcast. Sharing our stories with you has been incredibly healing for both of us, and we hope it helps other women in their journeys through breast cancer.
Ladies, if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and fellow breasties. Help us reach more women by subscribing and rating us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and now on YouTube. You can follow us on Instagram at TYFTS Podcast and email us at tyftspodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from you guys, so shoot us a message. We will link any resources from the episode in our show notes.